guys from the Fall, and Mark came in, and he was horrified that they were playing with us. He like started screaming at them like, "You don't do that. I don't know what his terms were, but you know, it's like we were like the enemy. You know, we were just the Fall like just is a self-contained unit. We don't like make friends and play with other people. Like we're playing music for communal sake." And they were, you know, a little bit of like, well, fuck you, Mark, but also followed the party line. I know this ends basically with the fight at Brownies, but there were other like smaller, quicker incidences all along the trip. I mean, I think in Philadelphia they had some sort of skirmish on stage, and that's where I was telling you they left the band, like got in their truck and split, and left Mark in the alleyway behind the Trocadero in Philadelphia, which is a nice size hall. And you know, we were loading up, getting ready to go, and I realized that this figure in the alleyway, this like rat-infested alleyway behind the thing, was Mark, and he's wandering around, bombed out of his mind. And I think like the Bush Tetras like all said for a second, like, well, what do we do here? Do we just leave him as well? But do we really want him in the van? And I mean, so, you know, we're a sympathetic bunch, so we took him in, and it was quite the experience because, you know, first of all, I went up to him and I said, "Mark, you know, it's Dee, drummer from Bush Tetras. You want to ride to New York, or you gonna just," because he had no money on him, not a cent, and he was, I don't know what he was thinking he was gonna go do, because this was like, there was kind of nothing in the neighborhood for him to amble onto or like to seek help, you know. I mean, and I don't know who would have wanted to have taken pity on him, like you know, some stranger going, "Who's this crazy fucking English lunatic that's, you know, completely smashed?" So, you know, and I remember like, and I think I'm about a year older than Mark, so, but I remember him coming up to me and putting his hand on my shoulder and going, "Thank you, my son." And I felt like I was talking to a priest, you know, it's like the hip priest, you know. And I was like, "I'm not your son. Get in the fucking van. Or else, you know, you have like 10 seconds to decide, or else you're on your own." And like, I don't know, but he got in, and he did have a bottle of whiskey with him as well. And I remember I was sitting in the front, kind of looking in the back, and, you know, Bush Tetras are 3 women and myself, and he was like sitting in between them all. And I remember him like going to Cynthia the singer, like, I remember meeting you, you know, and they'd never met, and he was telling her this long story, and we were just like incredulous, going, "What is this guy?" You know, it's like, but it was a pretty surreal, you know, 2-hour ride from Philly back to New York.
Was he on something, or was he just always drunk, or like, what do you think his deal was?
Oh, coke and alcohol. I mean, that's. I'm sure if it was England, he would have found some speed, but you know, it was America, and at the time, like, the prevalent thing would be to find some coke. So, I mean, I never actually witnessed him, and I don't really, you know, it wasn't our thing. But I know he drank a lot, a real lot. Well, I only had a couple of, you know, a few really lucid conversations with the guy. And, you know, I don't know if bipolar is, can be confused with accumulative drug and alcohol use, and the damage that that does to your brain and how you react, and like whether you're depressed or up or back and forth, the mood swings between like doing that stuff and trying to recover from that stuff. So alcohol's a depressant. So like I said, some days he was just a real, like, you just, up, here comes Mark, I'm going over there. And it was never like, oh, hi, how you doing today? It was never like, you never got that. It was never like this cordial, it was like you got to work to get like, something nice really out of him. So but I'm not trying to trash him either, because the music was so amazing when it was amazing. And then, but
can you tell me just a 30 seconds of just who the Fall are? Like how they're a pretty unbelievable band. Like like he's a legend.
The first time I saw them in America, I saw them in England in '78, and then the next time I saw them, they'd opened up for the Clash at Bonds, and they from '82 or '83, whenever Bonds shows happened, to '98, their whole presentation was a lot different. It was less forceful and more, I don't know what the word is. It just wasn't that attacking kind of presence. It was more like, this is what we do, and if you're going to like it or you're not going to like it. I knew who they were. I liked some of their music a lot. I loved his influences, because he, besides maybe the punk rock aesthetic, he also really favored like American country and rockabilly, and just some weird ass stuff that he would, it was all put into the Marky Smith mixer in his head and put back out in a whole nother way, so it wasn't like, I can't remember some of their covers that they did, but they did some pretty obscure rockabilly things, which I thought were amazing. And, he had influences like George Jones, let's say, and that, wasn't something you would get from, let's say, the Sex Pistols. It was it was broader and more far-reaching, his scope or his vision. So
yeah, pretty fucking great, right? Like you
get that?
Like yeah, he's in there. She, right?
Yeah. I'm always find it amazing how he's treated in England as legendary. Those are tough terms. He's lasted a long time, so I guess by default, last man standing. Yes, he's become legendary. When he gets like these awards in England, I'm always really surprised that that whoever gives these things are that also broad-minded, that they can see his genius as opposed to just his faults. So if you look at it in terms of tabloid stuff, you would go, they gave this motherfucker an award? Damn, like, go pay his bar tab. I'm sure down at the local would be like a big award, but, so, that would never happen in America,
Right. Yeah, they're blind to that for some reason over there. I guess they're prideful about the music or something.
Well,
whatever it is.
It's also a much smaller place,
True.
but so, the Fall have never really achieved huge status in the States, but
Right.
very few people do.
Yeah, yeah.
I know Lois and Dennis gave the Fall, you know, they funded them to whatever degree. I don't know if they gave them an initial money, like, yeah, I guess they paid for their plane tickets and, you know, some probably initial costs, you know, hotels, things like that. I never realized that Dennis and Lois just gave them carte blanche to like go do what they wanted to do, and at the end they would settle up, because I don't think they were a band that kept receipts or really paid any mind to what they were, what the expenses were. What the at the end
Yeah.
the after the Brownies, the last Brownies show, the band split. I mean, the you know, Steve, the drummer, the guitar player, they just took off. I think Mark, and I forget the woman's name that played keyboards, but he was in jail, I think, the last day. I mean, he got arrested. I mean, I know that they went back to their hotel, and they had a fight, and the police came and took him away. And I don't know if they found substance stuff and that was part of it, but I'm pretty sure he spent like a day in jail. But the band split. But you know, as far as Dennis and Lois go, what is truly amazing is their belief in them, that they were gonna, that it was all gonna work out right. Yeah, their trust in them was so complete because they loved them so much that I don't think they ever understood that this was also, there was business here. And I don't think they approached it properly as on the business side. You know, it's, you give somebody money, and yes, with that trust and that love, and going, yep, it's all going to be okay. And it must have been kind of a brutal awakening to like go, something I love just smacked me back in the face. That would be a really hard thing to take. I mean, especially with the figure you know they're talking about. I mean, that came out of pure love for something, you know. And these are like your heroes. You admire them. You know, you follow them. You give them everything that you can possibly give, and then you find out at the end, wow, they're basically a bunch of scumbags, you know. And it's like, we're at all this money. That, you know, that they still love the band is amazing, you know, because I would. It's been really hard for me to listen to the Fall since then. The night when they had the fight on stage was the final gig. There was a second night, and that got canceled because he was in jail. So they never finished the tour, basically. But as far as I remember, Mark had this habit of walking around on stage and either berating his band members, or doing things like going to the guitar player and twisting all the knobs on his guitar amp, turning them on, turning them off, doing different things. He would go around and rearrange the drum kit. He would just do stuff like, almost, it was like self-sabotage. It's like, I don't want this to be perfect, so I'm going to do stuff. And you know, it's like, I can't help but think, it's like, this is amusing to me, you know. But the band was like furious. And I remember the drummer just like vaulting over the kit and like going, I fucking had it. Like, you are, you know, like, I can only take so much of you before, like, I gladly give up this gig. It's just not worth it to be in your band any longer. I can't, you know, you treat me like dirt. And Mark, I don't think, had any problem with that. So, I mean, there was, the fight wasn't really much of a fight. It's more, I think it's been made bigger over the years, you know, as the legend propagates itself. But, you know, it was fairly quick.
Scuffle.
It was a scuffle. I think there might have been like a fist, you know, a fist thrown, and then some of the band members left the stage, and he wandered around and said stuff like trying to provoke the crowd. And like I said, when you see the video, somebody screams out in the middle of it, "Go get Dee!" And I remember I was by the soundboard going, "Nope, I'm not getting involved." You know, I've seen this every night. It'll be over in a few seconds, and what happens, happens. And I think they continued the set. I don't think it ended. And they probably played better right after that for a little bit, because everybody was just so pissed off. It was like that's all they could think about was playing, and not. But you knew the second the set was done, it was over for the fall, or that lineup anyway. Those guys couldn't get out of there fast enough.